Laurie Huston's News for the Heart is dedicated to helping you give a voice to your own soul. Our hearts have the power to free us from pain and the struggles that keep us from awakening to our true essence. Join Laurie now as we delve into our heart and soul to find the path that will open us to the possibilities and lead us to the life we love to live.
And good afternoon. This is News for the Heart. And today I have Tom Campbell, my awesome co-host, who we've been doing this for a long time now, over 10 years. Yay.
Different formats, but I like this format the best.
Me too. Me too. Well, I really didn't want to talk about this again, and I don't want to talk about conspiracy because that seems to be the theme that is getting trolled a lot these days. Yes, we still have the people that think that this is all a hoax, which I kind of think is funny. Maybe not so much for the people that have actually caught something and have already passed, but I do think it's interesting that we want to write it off as a conspiracy and a hoax. The other thing that keeps coming up now is our lack of freedom. I'm not actually sure we ever had any freedom, or at least not as much freedom as people think we want to have, but I don't think that that's the message that we should be getting from all of this. Yes, we're being asked to stay 6 feet away from people, and we're being asked to, not go out as often. And yes, there are people that are getting ticketed, and because they're not following the rules. But the people that seem to think this is a hoax, and the people that seem to think that we no longer have freedom, we've kind of come full circle again. The message of our last show was that it really doesn't matter who's to blame. So everybody that's looking to blame somebody is because, well, we don't want to take responsibility. The whole tough love thing, that we're all part of this larger consciousness system, that we're here to grow up, and we're not doing that. And so instead, we seem to want to blame everybody and have these conspiracies that it's all a hoax, and then that our freedom is being taken care of or taken away from. It's just, it's interesting. And I don't know, I think part of it is we're looking, ultimately, our ego always wants to be in control. And so we're looking at things and trying to get back our control because we don't have any control. So we troll things and we put out comments and we don't quite get the whole, I don't know. People are saying we're romanticizing the fact that the earth is getting cleaner because we are being asked to stay at home and that we're not being able to, transport all over the world. And I don't know that that's a romanticizing, but there's just so many thoughts out there. And to me, they're all fear, every single one of them, except for the ones that are being real.
Yeah, well, fear is obviously the problem. Wherever there's lots of fear, you will find people creating things to be fearful of. If you're a very fearful person, then you will find scary things everywhere. It's like I guess it was kind of an old joke about the man in New York City who was terrified of elephants. And every puddle he saw on the ground, well, that was rain filling in an elephant's footprint. And every time the wind rustled the bushes, over there in the park, he'd see those bushes rustling. He knew there was an elephant hiding behind those bushes, etc. So he had lots of evidence about elephants, roaming around in New York City. He found evidence everywhere. Well, that's the way it is. If you're terrified of elephants, you're going to find evidence of elephants, even if you live in New York City. If you're terrified of your government and you're terrified of, your life and you're terrified of getting sick or whatever it is you're terrified of, if you're even just terrified that you feel inconsequential, that you feel small and as you say, powerless, you can't control your life. You seem to just be going along and things happen and you're not in control of it, and that's frightening and that's very scary. Well, if you're very frightened about these things, then you will see diabolical plots everywhere. It doesn't matter what happens. even the kindest and most benevolent thing happened, you'd probably find a way to turn that into some kind of horrible plot. So it's just the nature of fear. Fear enables you to have more fear. It's one of those things. The more fear you have, the easier it is to get more fear. The more fearful you are, the more you find scary things everywhere you look. That's just kind of the nature of fear. And on the other side, it's the opposite. If you have a very positive attitude, then you can find the positive in almost everything. No matter how dark that cloud is that comes and dumps rain, you can find that silver lining in it. Oh, gee, we really needed that rain for some reason or another, or it clears the air of pollen, or you can think of some positive. Oh, it's raining. I get to stay home and do those things that I've been meaning to do for months and never really can find the time for. You find some positive way to deal with things. And no matter how dark or how ominous, you find the positive in it. You learn from it. You grow from it. You say, boy, that was really tough. Like Viktor Frankl being tortured and his family and children all killed in concentration camps. He didn't come out bitter and with, neurotic and crazy because of all the, PTSD, with that sort of thing. He came out with a whole bright idea about how psychology worked and how people worked. And, the bitterness, the negativity just didn't stick to him. He found something valuable, even in an experience that horrible, which is hard to come up with an experience any more horrible than what he had. I mean, what we're doing today is really, really light stuff, even frivolous compared to what he went through. Yet he comes out and basically unscathed in the sense that it didn't make him fearful. Yeah. He found something positive that he could get out of that. Well, that's the difference between growing up, being grown up and not being grown up. If you're grown up, you're positive. That's the whole thing that defines being grown up. If you're not fearful, you take things positively. Yes, hard things can happen, difficult things can happen, but you deal with them in a positive way. You optimize whatever there is to optimize, even if that's not much. So it's just a different attitude. So the fearful will find fearful things everywhere they look. Everything, is going to be scary. And if you're fearful of your government and you're fearful of other things, then you're going to find scary plots abounding everywhere. And it doesn't mean that there are no conspiracies. No. There may be conspiracies. I can think of, any number of things that I could label as a conspiracy. We can say that the corporations are conspiring to get as much money out of us as possible. Maybe to manipulate prices, to do this or that, to make us want to buy things that we don't need, using psychology on us. And we can say that, and they're all doing it, so therefore it must be a conspiracy. But things just happen. People are the way they are, and a lot of people in our reality have a pretty low quality of consciousness. It's just a fact. Most of us have a fairly low quality of consciousness compared to the high quality of consciousness being a person of love, a person that's always positive, a person that's only interested in helping others, not interested in themselves. Well, that's a pretty rare person. So most of us are walking around with a fair amount of fear. And our job is to let go of that fear and to grow up. And like I say, the more fear we have, the more fearful things we see, the more fearful things we find. So it doesn't mean that there are no conspiracies. It doesn't mean that there aren't evil people out there that would do us harm. It doesn't mean that there aren't groups of people planning to manipulate us in all sorts of ways. There are, but they're there. It's part of our reality, and we get to deal with it. And we get to deal with it in a very positive way if we're grown up, or we can deal with it in a very negative way. See, that's the point. So it's not so much that these things exist or don't exist. I don't think anyone would say there are no conspiracies, and everybody who's, has a conspiracy theory is obviously crazy. That's not the case. A lot of stuff out there is unpleasant. A lot of it is planned to be, unpleasant, to take advantage of us. I mean, that's what marketing is all about, how to take advantage of people and make them not dislike you afterwards. Take advantage of people and make them smile at the end of it. That's what marketing is all about. Manipulating people. That's what a lot of our cultural rules are. They're about manipulating people. Yeah. So, okay, we live in a world of people that generally have a low quality of consciousness, and that means many of them will be manipulative. Many of them will be just looking out for themselves, trying to aggrandize, themselves and their life and collect as much power as they can and use that power as best they can to manipulate others to their own benefit, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You expect all that, all right? Now, what are you going to do about it? Well, ranting and raving and shaking your fist and getting angry isn't helpful. It just makes everything worse. That makes the environment even a worse environment. You deal with it gracefully, positively. Deal with it when you have to deal with it. It doesn't mean you just lie down and say, walk over me. That's not the point. You deal with it positively. You get smart. You learn how to do those things that kind of keeps you out of that trap and out of that trouble. And when you have to, well, you do what you have to do. Minimize, the negative aspects that you're going to have to deal with. So that's the way to go through life. You go through life happy, positive. Life is good. You find joy. You find good things in your life. And that's the important stuff. That negative stuff out there, that's just slop you have to deal with. It's not that important. Yeah, it's out there, but deal with it, and deal with it purposely. Deal with it intelligently. Help other people see better. Educate other people. But you don't educate people by going off on a tirade. That just pushes people away. You don't educate people by trying to bully them and scare them into agreeing with you. That just makes everything worse. So if you're on the fear side of things and the angry side of things and the upset side of things, you're actually part of the problem. You're not part of the solution. So that's kind of the idea. So it's not so much what's out there. There's a lot of wonderful things out there, and there's a lot of nasty things out there. Well, now we get to deal with those things. How can we deal with them in a positive way, helping other people also deal with them in a positive way through education, through caring, through, volunteering. There's all kinds of things that we can do, and we should do those things. Don't lie down and just forget it. You can still try to change things. I'm not saying don't try to change anything. You can try to change things wherever you see change. But if your change is not applied from a positive direction, it's part of the problem, and it's not helping. You can't force change. Change has to grow from the inside out. And if you force people to change or try to scare people into changing, all you've done is made everything worse. So no, it's not lie down, let everybody walk over you. No, it's not just ignore all the bad things and pretend they don't exist. No, it's not that you shouldn't change anything and you should be a fatalist and just accept it all. None of those things are where I'm going. I'm saying you need to deal with it intelligently, be smart, understand it, learn, and deal positively. Deal with it in ways that are helpful to yourself and to others. Don't deal with it in ways that just adds more fear to the problem. See, that's the key thing. And you hear people talking about freedoms, losing freedoms. Well, we live in a society of people. Whenever 2 or more people get together, I guess you could call that a little social group. But the larger the social group gets, the more rules the social group imposes. That's just the way it is. So if it's you and 5 other people, and you're a family, and that's the total social group, because you're Swiss Family Robinson, and you and your family live in this tree, on an island someplace, and there isn't anybody else there. Well, then the rules don't have to be real hard and fast, because everybody talks to everybody every day, and it's easy to kind of get along. But if you have, 100 people all sharing the same space, now you need a little more rules, because now you have 100 different attitudes and 100 different plans and 100 different people, going in different ways, and you have to make some rules. There's things that you cannot do. And if you see that as taking away freedom, well, yes, that is what it does. It says you can't kill, you can't steal, you can't cheat, you can't, you can't lie. There's things that are negative in our society that we prohibit. You can't shout fire in a movie theater, free speech or not. These are things that you cannot do. Otherwise, there are people who enforce these rules, and you will be, you will be nabbed by those people who enforce those rules. But these are rules that are social rules, and they exist just because people live together in large groups. And we need those social rules. If you take away all the rules, you take away all the law. You take away all the constraints. Now you're back to the, now we're all savages running around in the jungle, right? And it's whoever wins is the biggest and the strongest, and the cleverest as well. That's who wins. So everybody's out for themselves, and it's everybody trying to take advantage of everybody else. Well, that's not a pretty place to live. The rules make it more livable in a society. It makes a culture. It makes a civilization. That's what creates the civilization, are constraints, things that are encouraged and things that are discouraged by whatever means. So if your idea of freedom is that you can do anything you want, anytime you want, anywhere you want, well, go live on an island by yourself, and you will have that kind of freedom.
I think it's more the people that are upset that they can't work, or,
Well, if you're upset about things like that, then you're not complaining about having your freedoms taken away. You're complaining about having your work taken away. That's a different attitude. And that's one of these things that stuff happens and you get to deal with it. And it may not be a nice thing that happens, but deal with it in a positive way. I don't know what all those answers are, but look for other work, find other ways to get by, minimize your expenses, take what helps you can get from programs that are made to help people that are kind of stuck like that. Do whatever it is you can do, do your best, but don't do it with anger. Don't do it with being upset. Deal with whatever it is you have to deal with positively, with some grace, accept uncertainty in life. Don't be upset because things are uncertain. Take your life as it comes. And I say that, even for things that are difficult. Say, you're a parent and one of your children dies. Well, that's a really hard thing. Or you're a very young child and one of your parents die. There's lots of things that are very difficult to deal with. But if how you deal with it is with anger and upset, all you will do is damage yourself and make everything worse. If you can deal with things, so I'm not saying that, you can say that because, you're not being squeezed right now or you didn't lose your job, but I'm talking about very hard things, everything. You have to deal with it the same way, the best you can. Some situations are just hard, but you do the best you can and stay positive. Negative doesn't help. It doesn't take you anywhere. Thrashing about and getting upset and getting angry is never a solution to a problem, at least not a long-term solution. Maybe you can bully your way a little bit to a solution, but that's a short-term grab, not a long-term good. So we talk about free will, and again, sometimes people think free will means you can do anything you want whenever you want to. And we don't have any free will here. Well, of course we all have free will. It's an ability to make the choice among the choices that you know you have to make. That's all there is. So if I'm in some situation, I have choices. They may not be the choices I want. They may not be the choices that, I'd like to be able to make, but I have choices. And how cleverly and how positively I make those choices is what makes us grow up or not grow up. So if my choice is that I'm just going to get angry and holler and thrash around, and that's my choice, how I'm going to deal with the situation, well, that's a poor choice. That doesn't help you grow up. That helps you de-evolve, makes you part of the problem. So it's not a matter of how hard the problem is or how terrible it is. It's, again, look at Viktor Frankl. How tough was his problem? He's Jewish. He's captured by Nazis. He's tortured. He's on work crews. He's in a prison camp. His children and his wife are all murdered. Well, can you think of something that's tougher than that? I mean, that's pretty tough. Okay, so it is possible, even when things are really, really tough, to stay positive, to not blame, to not get into fear. It's possible. Well, you have to be grown up to do that. Well, that's what we're here for, to make those choices to help us grow up. So try to keep your choices, and choices are how to feel. I mean, that's a choice. If you feel angry, that's a choice of yours. There are other choices you have besides getting angry, or besides getting upset. They may be difficult for you to access those choices, but they're there. You see? So we do have free will because we always have choices. We're hardly ever, I can't think of a place where there are no choices. Now, a lot of people say, oh, I don't have any choices, but what they mean is I don't have any choices that I like. I don't have any choices that I want to choose. Well, life is like that sometimes. Your only choices are between bad and worse. Well, then take bad instead of worse and make as much of it as you can. How can you learn from that? What's the big picture here? How can you optimize that bad choice as opposed to the worst choice? Well, then do that, and stuff happens. And you just have to deal with life as it happens. And what I've found that if you do that, life starts to become good. Not necessarily always, but most of the time. The stuff you need kind of happens because you are having the right attitude. This is a virtual reality. It's a learning lab. And if you do well in class, you tend to get gold stars, at the end of the day, and things work out pretty good. If you don't, if you're not growing up and not being positive, then things tend to be negative because the pain is your feedback that tries to get you to make better choices. So yes, we have a lot of people on hard times, and those hard times are really hard. I wouldn't make light of the jams that people are in now. An awful lot of people find themselves between a rock and a hard place. Whatever it is they do, it's going to hurt. Do the best you can. Be smart, because that free will only chooses among the choices that you have. You may have dozens of choices. Actually, there may be dozens of choices that you don't know you have. Choices that are maybe inaccessible to you just because of the way you are, just because of your attitude. So that's why I say be smart. Make sure that you have as many choices as possible because you're open-minded, because you're seeing big pictures. You're not tunnel visioned in on an expectation or the way things need to be or being in control. You see, those things make choices go away. Oh, I can only do this if I'm in control. Well, now I only have those choices that make me in control. Otherwise, I can't do it. Well, I've just limited my choices a whole lot. You see, I can only do this if I make a lot of money doing it. Otherwise, I can't do that. Or even if I make enough money doing it, even if it isn't a lot. Well, otherwise I can't do that. Well, now you've limited your choices. So look at all your choices and see where they might lead. Sometimes a choice that looks not so great initially will lead to some place that is great after a little bit of time. But you'll never get that break if you don't make the initial choice. So we always have free will. Free will is just within the context of our own choices. And what we do with that free will is up to us. And if we use it to express our fear and our anger and our annoyance and our hate and our, general nastiness, then we're de-evolving. If we can stand back and say, wow, what a mess. And what a fix I'm in, but I'll make the best of it. I'll do what I can. And I'll be smart because I won't leave any low fruit hanging. I'm not going to miss out on a good choice just because, I'm too proud or I'm too fixated on something else or I have too much ego. I'll be smart and find the most positive path I can take and learn from it. I'll learn something from it. Okay, well, maybe that means you're going to go start driving, groceries around to people in their houses, or you start driving a UPS truck because UPS suddenly has a whole lot more business than they used to have since people are shipping more things. So you may have to do something like that, and you might be an executive someplace. And you say, oh, I can't do that sort of work. Well, you see, if you take that kind of work, and let's say you go drive that truck, and you talk to the people there, and the people there find out that you really are good at being an executive, well, when things get a little better, you may be the first one that gets called. That truck company may call you because they're growing, and they need new executives. But if you had turned it down because you were above that kind of work, you'd never had the opportunity. So that's just an example, but life tends to work that way. When you're positive and do things with a good attitude, stuff just seems to work out for you. At least that's been my experience. And that gets us to the other word you used, control. People are terrified when they don't feel like they're in control. Being out of control is what makes many people fearful. They feel small, they feel inadequate, and they feel out of control because something else is controlling them. The puppet masters are controlling all of us puppets, and they're out of control. Doesn't matter what they do. They're just small and insignificant, and that makes them angry. You see? Well, you find that almost never are you really in control of anything other than yourself. I don't know. I'd have to think a long time to see what it is I'm in control of other than myself. My choices, I'm in complete control of that. I'm in control of myself. But that's really all I'm in control of. I'm not in control of what my boss does. I'm not in control of what my spouse does. I'm not in control of anything else, really. Stuff happens and I get to deal with it. And if I try to control it, if I want to be in control of it, what I do is I just make myself crazy because I'm running around trying to manipulate things to be the way I want them, and it just never works because nothing and nobody likes being manipulated. Everybody pushes back, and everybody knows you're trying to manipulate them. No matter how clever you think you are as a manipulator, people get that they're being manipulated and they push back. So your life as a manipulator is a life of frustration. All right, let's say you have, $10 billion in the bank. Now it's easier to manipulate things. You can be a more successful manipulator now because you have power. But does that make you happy? No. You think that, if I could just manipulate everything to be the way I wanted, I'd be happy and joyful. And no, it doesn't make you happy at all. What it does is it puts you on a treadmill, because the more the things you manipulate, the more other things you need to manipulate to go with those things you're manipulating. And pretty soon, you're working 60 hours a week just to keep all the balls in the air, because you've got so many manipulations going on that you work a lot of hours and you don't really have much satisfaction in your life. All the important things in your life, like relationships, like caring, connections, relaxation, all that kind of joy is gone because this manipulation becomes a full-time job. And people who have lots of money aren't happy because they have lots of money. If they're happy, it's because they've grown up and let go of their fear. That's what gives you happiness, not lots of money. It may make you a better manipulator because you have more power, but that doesn't buy you anything. Being a great manipulator doesn't put you ahead in any way. You think it will, but it really just puts you behind. It just gives you a never-ending source of things to do. You always have to be patching holes everywhere. As your manipulations start to fall apart, you have to have a plan B. And then that falls apart, you need a plan C, and so on. It's a constant, you're a juggler that keeps getting more and more balls to juggle at the same time. And that is not really where you want to live. That's not a good place to be. So the idea here is be positive. Be positive with all that you do. Even when you're in an ugly situation that isn't what you want, be positive. Life isn't about what you want. Life is about making good choices, not about getting what you want. Getting what you want is about ego. I want, I need, I deserve, this isn't fair. The evil people are making this mess for me. That makes me angry. The puppeteers are ruining everything for us. That makes me angry. None of that is helpful. Being aware that there are puppeteers, like the example we have of marketers and things like that are trying to pull our strings, and politicians that are trying to convince us to believe this or believe that. There's lots of people trying to manipulate us. Our bosses, our children, our relatives, everybody's trying to manipulate us. Yes, and we're trying to manipulate everybody else. Okay, that's the way we live. It's a lot of people all trying to have control. Your kids want control, your spouse wants control, your boss wants control, everybody wants some control. And you push back mostly when they do that, or you acquiesce sometimes when you have to. And that kind of defines life in this world full of not so grown up people. Well, you need to get out of that rat race, get out of that soap opera life, constant gnashing of teeth and wringing of hands, and oh now what are we going to do, and on and on and on, and get out of that and learn to grow, to make good choices, to find joy and peace and satisfaction in life, even when life is rough, even when it's hard. So what keeps us from doing that? Our fear. What keeps us, in that, yes, but this is unfair. Oh, but this makes me angry. That's our ego. Our fear, our ego, our beliefs. That's what makes us miserable. It's not the evil people who run the world and are the puppet masters. That's not what makes us unhappy and miserable. We just pretend, we blame them. But they're not really the cause of our misery. The cause of our misery are our own poor choices. It's our fear. That's what causes our misery. And those puppeteers can just plan and manipulate all they want, and you'll still be happy and pleasant and learn a lot and grow up, which is the point of being here, in spite of it. They can't make you happy, and they can only make you unhappy if you let them. You let them when you have fear. So I guess that's kind of the message for the people who are the conspiracy theorists who see conspiracies and evil doings behind a lot of things. Well, there is a lot of negativity behind a lot of things. Okay, sure. It's life. Deal with it. Deal with it positively, not by blaming others and calling it unfair and pointing fingers and I'm smarter than everybody else because I understand this and they don't. None of that's helpful. And for the people who think like they're losing freedoms, well, because we all are supposed to stay home and not catch this disease or give it to anybody else, well, that's just another one of these social things where people come up with rules to help the whole. It's like law, or custom, or a lot of other things that cultures have that impose constraints on people within those cultures. Laws are a constraint that we impose upon people in our culture. Different cultures have different laws. So they say, if you don't want any constraints, then you need to be a single individual living where you do not interact with any other people. Now you have no constraints whatsoever on your behavior. Have at it. Whatever, comes to you, you just do it. And nobody will care. But if you have one other person on that island with you, now politeness, some caring, some sharing, some working together is important. Or at least it would make it better for the both of you if you could do those things. But if both of you just are self-centered, all about me, I'll do whatever I want, I don't care about you, then you're going to live in an unhappy space, even if it's just two of you. It's not going to be pleasant. You have to learn to cooperate, work together. Can't do just what you want. Now you have some constraints. Oh, my friend wants to go harvest some coconuts from the palm tree here on our island. Well, one of them has to climb the tree and the other one has to collect the nuts. So it takes two people, perhaps. Maybe it takes two people to break them open. Maybe neither one of you are very good at doing it all yourself. It'd be a lot better to do it with somebody. So you'll learn to cooperate, make the best of what you have. That's all I'm saying, is that if you're unhappy, if you are frightened, if you see ugly things going on and that upsets you and angers you and makes you feel like, what's the use? What's the point? Everything's so bad. And you can't help but scare other people because you tell them how awful it is and how scary it is. Okay, if that's where you are, you're part of the problem. You're not part of the solution. You got to let go of all that fear and start making the best choices you have. And I can tell you ahead of time that the best choice you have is not to blame other people about what's happening to you. That is not a useful choice for you to make. It doesn't lead anywhere good for you. It just leads to things being worse for you. It makes you depressed. It's not a smart choice. So I don't know if that will help people who are having a really hard time. And like I say, a lot of these hard times are really hard. I mean, what if you got a family of 4 or 5, people together and everybody's lost their jobs, and how do you pay the rent? And what do you do? Well, these are not easy things. But there are positive choices, which is the best choice that we can make under the circumstances. Getting upset and angry and screaming about it and fighting about it and being irritable and then not getting along with people and creating a bigger problem is not part of the solution. Ranting and raving is not part of the solution. Being snippety to people because you're upset is not helpful. So lighten up, folks. Deal what you have to deal with and keep a smile, keep a positive attitude. It'll be whatever it is. And sometimes it's really hard. Sometimes what we have to deal with kills us. Sometimes. Well, if that's the case, then move on to a new life experience afterwards. It's whatever it is. We're here to experience. And by those experiences, make good choices. That's what we're here for. Not to have a good time, not for it to be easy, not the party. We're here to make good choices. Choices that are positive, that are loving and caring. Choices that are helpful to other people, not just ourselves. We're here to cooperate and care, have empathy. You know, this is what we're here for. And if you do that, you're a success, even if you have to eat in a soup kitchen someplace because you can't afford to feed yourself. If you can do that, you'll still be a success. It'll still be a successful lifetime.
You think this, I don't know, my latest blog, I called it the brave new normal. Because one, we have to get rid of our fears and be brave. But what do you think? I mean, I think things are changing. I don't think we may ever get back to what we were before. I don't know that that's even the place we want to go. Right?
I was going to say, I hope not.
Yeah.
Where we were before was not exactly perfection. You know, hopefully we'll learn some things in this experience that will help us grow up some, give us a different set of choices. I mean, that's the whole point. When things get tumultuous, when things get difficult, your potential for learning grows. Your potential for growth and for, you know, improving yourself grows. So if you're just in this rut and everything is just okay and you're just keeping on because keeping on is what you do, you're not going to learn a whole lot in that. It's when stuff happens. It's when you know, life gets difficult is when we tend to grow up. So I would hope we don't go back to where we were. I would hope we go someplace better than where we were. And I'm very encouraged by the number of people who seem to care enough about other people that they're willing to stay home and not get infected and not infect those other people. That is the good thing to do. That's the caring thing to do for all of us, is to do that. And I've heard some things in the last couple of days where I remember somebody from Stanford or someplace, you'd think it was an institution where people would have known better, but basically this guy who was a well-known person there was saying, you know, we need to all get back to work and cut out all this panic and nonsense. Sure, we'll protect the old people, but everybody else can go back to work. Well, if everybody else is going to go out and share viruses, how are you going to protect the old people? The old people have to interact with those people. It's not like, unless you put all the old people in a deep hole, you know, and then cover them over. The old people are more dependent on services than the young people. They need to shop too. They need to have maintenance on their house done. They need to have workers over. They need to, you know, talk to people. They've got things to do, people to meet, hands to shake, you know, interactions to have, grandchildren to play with. They've got a lot of things to do as well. And if everybody else is out there sharing the virus, well, you've just shut them off from contact with the rest of the world. If there's any group of people that needs contact with the rest of the world to survive, it's the old people. They need more services. They need more connection. They need more looking after. So this idea about, oh, we'll all get back to work, and yeah, we'll protect the old folks, but all the rest of us need to get back to work. Well, that's silly. If the rest of us all go back and start hanging out with each other and passing the virus around, we're going to kill the old people, is what we're going to do, because eventually they'll have to interact with some of those people who have it, and when they get it, they're going to be more likely to die from it. So it's, come on, you know. But I heard that, and I thought, that's really kind of an irresponsible thing to say from somebody in a higher position that has a place, you know, it kind of has a podium to which he speaks, and promising to protect those old people, but never saying exactly how that would take place, you know.
Yeah.
So we hear that sort of thing where let's get back, we got to get that economy going again. Well, we do have to see carefully how much of it we can get back going again before the number of deaths start going up because of it. And there may be some trade someplace that, you know, if because the economy's bad, we have, you know, 10,000 people are going to starve to death while only 5,000 people are going to die from COVID, well, now there might be choices, but we're not anywhere near that kind of situation yet, where we have to make that sort of choices. So yes, we need some distancing, and now you go into stores and they maybe only let a certain number of people in the store at a time so that the distancing can be observed. And when you check out, you just don't talk, you keep your mouth shut and you wear a mask. And all right, we can do these things. And I think we can probably keep that economy rolling along better than it is now. So yeah, we need to come back slowly and see. If we do that and nothing terrible happens, like the number of the number of infected people doesn't start to go through the roof again, well, then do a little more of it. And when we see where the number of infected people does start climbing rapidly again, well, then we need to back off of that. So I would agree, let's find that sweet point where we get as much of our economy going as possible without creating an even worse problem someplace else. And that'll take some time. It's not like people can just, do a few calculations and tell us exactly where that point is. We'll just have to find it and get there and probably cross the line a little too far and then back up a little bit and see how things change. And eventually we'll get back to, we'll recreate a new normal, because it seems that this disease has people that have had it, particularly in China, some of them are re-getting it again. So that means it has mutated.
Right.
Well, if it mutates, then it starts all over again.
Right.
Nobody has any antibodies to the new mutated form. Now, maybe the mutated form will be a softer, gentler thing that doesn't kill people, or maybe not. I don't know. So who knows? We may be in this kind of state of worrying about this disease for the next 3 months, for the next 3 years, for the next decade. I mean, we really don't know where this is going. It may be a decade later, we're still under the same kind of situation we're in now. It depends. If we have a virus that mutates into a whole lot of other things that are just as nasty as this one, but different, so the old antibodies won't help you out, then this could go on for quite a while. I mean, so we don't know any of those things. A decade from now, 2 decades from now, we all may be wearing masks whenever we go out. We may live in a world that's just full of killer viruses. Who knows? It's not worth worrying about, you see. It is whatever it is. Stuff happens, we get to deal with it. So it's almost like this fun game we're playing. We go make good choices and see what happens. And then more stuff happens, and then we make those good choices and see what happens. And it may take us to happy places, it may take us to tough places, but wherever it takes us, we get to decide what are our best choices. And then we grow up, we evolve, and whatever happens here, our time on this planet, in this body, is useful. It's good. We've learned. You see, we plus up or level up in the gaming world. Well, that's what it's all about. So it's not about, oh, life will be terrible if, we're still in this spot a decade later. Life will be whatever's life's going to be. Maybe it'll all be over next month. Maybe it won't be over for a decade, but don't worry about either one of those. Just take it as it goes, day at a time, week at a time. Live your life, make your best choices, and let the uncertainty of what it's going to end up like go. One of the things I tend to say is live gracefully with uncertainty. So you just have to, things that you cannot control, you need to leave alone. You need to not fret over stuff you can't control. So this may be the new normal for us, or it may not. And it's not worth getting upset or worried or angry over any of it. It just is going to be whatever it's going to be. And we still get to make choices and evolve. And that's really what we're here in the game for, is to make those good choices and evolve. So what's the real problem? All right, it could get hard. We may have dozens of these diseases going around instead of just one. Who knows where this will take us, but it'll take us somewhere else. So we've just been kicked out of our rut, and now there's a lot of new stuff going on. And what are we going to do with it? What are we going to learn from it? That's really the place to be, not worrying over what this model says or that model says or how long it's going to be or when we're going to get back to normal. We'll probably never get back exactly to the normal. And like I say, I hope not. I hope we get back to wherever we get back to or wherever we get forward to. I hope it's better than the old normal because people will have grown up. And that's what's important, is that people grow up. That's the whole point of it. So I just look at the whole thing as positive, in the sense that we get kicked out of the rut. We have to think new thoughts. We have to kind of consider new ideas, find new ways of being and getting along and doing commerce. And maybe we won't do commerce so much about getting in big crowds and rubbing elbows. Maybe we're going to do more digital things. Maybe our whole society and culture will take a turn here and end up, developing and evolving in some other direction other than the way it has been, which is big mass meetings where lots of people get together and, and are close to each other. That may be a thing of the past, sort of like people riding horses. And one time everybody rode horses around, and that was just a part of the culture. If you wanted to go someplace more than a mile or two, you needed a horse. Well, not true anymore. So that part of our culture, that was a necessary and very obvious and central part of our culture. Horses, not anymore. Gone. We do other things now. We ride around in automobiles. Now we need gasoline instead of horses. So things change. And if we make good choices, we'll all do better. And we'll grow up. And we'll all have a good time. It'll just be all right, So okay, we're kicked out of our rut. Now, what are we going to do with it? Think positive. If you think positive, we'll do something positive with it. If you think negative and think fearful, we're going to mess it up and create something really, really ugly. So it's our choice, our collective choice. So what we do as a society is the sum of all the parts, the sum of all the choices that the people make. So if we have 90% of us all very fearful, well, then we'll create a fearful, unpleasant, and it'll be less pleasant now than it was a decade ago. We'll create something worse because people are more fearful now than they used to be. That is, we've been de-evolving. Or if we're positive and do the best we can and make good choices, then we'll create something much better than what we had before. So it's good every once in a while to get jerked up out of your rut and to have a whole new set of things to have to make choices about. So I just encourage all the listeners to make positive choices, make happy choices, make good choices, stay smart, be aware of what's going on, but be positive. Let people be the way they are. If other people are ugly and low quality consciousness, you got to live with that. It's the way they are. That's not a good reason for you to make poor quality choices. Accept them the way they are and go on. So I don't know whether we call this tough love or what, but it's kind of trying to recalibrate people to see life in from a different perspective. The perspective of fear is, oh no, look at that. Oh, how horrible. We're being manipulated. Our freedoms are being taken away. Oh no, the future is going to be a terrible thing. Unite now, we have to fight back. That sort of thing. Well, what we create there is probably a war or something else, and it will not be pleasant, and it'll hurt more people than it will help, and it will be a big disaster for everybody. That's not really what we need.
No.
We just need people to grow up, you see. So if we have that positive attitude, then we just chug along and we can be happy and we can find joy, even if we're in a very hard situation. We do the best we can, we learn, and even if we end up think something horrible, starving to death, well then We get to start over in another situation someplace. So that's the way it is. And the people who are very fearful will probably listen to me and think that guy just doesn't understand.
Yeah.
But
I like the comment, well, apparently if he's staying home, he's doing it because of fear. And I think they missed that point.
no, you don't do, that's the thing. Sometimes people think that being fearless means you're stupid.
Yeah.
Well, why don't you jump off this cliff if you're fearless? Well, no, because I'm not stupid, not because I'm fearless, you see. So you don't stay home because you're fearful. You stay home because it's the right thing to do. If you go out there and get infected and then you interact with other people and somebody comes to your house and they get infected because of you, even if they're just there delivering the mail to you and they hand you a package and want you to sign it, so you hold it and then you give it back to them to get your pen and they give it back to you and now they're sick. And you're going to interact with people. You have to interact with people. And, so the reason you stay home isn't because of fear. If you're staying home because you're fearful, that's the wrong reason. You stay home because it's the best choice you have. It's the right thing to do, not to pass this on, to keep this virus from just going wild until everybody has gotten it. And if that is inevitable, then we want to do that. We want to get to that place as slowly as possible so that we don't overrun, the resources to cope with it.
Yeah.
So in any case, even if you think it's inevitable that everybody will eventually have to get it, well, we don't want to all do that on the same day, because then a lot of people will just say, well, okay, you need some oxygen, but sorry, we're all out of oxygen now and we don't have any more room for you, so just go die. We don't want that. So we either are going to keep people from getting it at all or slow down that process such that when people do get it, it's a trickle that the hospitals and the doctors can deal with. Because doctors and nurses and technicians that work in hospitals, they all can get this disease too. And as they drop out of the workforce, everything gets slower and slower and less efficient. And this idea of just, well, everybody's going to get infected one day anyway, so let's just get it over with. That's just really stupid. It's uncaring is what it is. It's very self-centered. I don't think I'm going to be hurt by it, and I just don't give a damn about anybody else. That's what people like that are saying. Well, let's get that economy going, Those old people, well, we'll protect them somehow, Well, that's just self-centeredness. It's not going to hurt me, so I don't care about other people. And that's what we used to do when all these viruses came around. That's the way we used to think about it. Okay, the flu's coming around. What was it when I was a kid? Hong Kong flu or swine flu, other things that went around when I was young. And the idea was, well, it's the flu. Some people will get it. Some people won't. Some people will kill them. Often old people or very young people or people who are kind of fragile with their health, and they'll die from it. Yeah, that's just the way it is. That happens. Flu comes around. Some people die. Some people don't. Life goes on. That was where we were until this hit. That was our attitude.
It was.
But that's not a really good attitude. If you think about it, that's just a self-centered, it doesn't hurt me, so let's get on with life. It's not going to affect me. It's not probably going to affect my boss. And if it does, good. Maybe I'll get his position if he dies with the flu, So it's all going to sort itself out. Some people die, some people won't. Let's just go on and let it do its thing. Flu's just a part of life. Don't get too excited about it. So that's where we were with all the flu that's gone around every year for, the last 50 years or as long as, well, more than that. I remember flu's probably going back more like 60 years or so. It's always been that way. And that's always been our attitude. We couldn't see any other choice. What other choice do we have? We just have to keep going, keep doing our things, going to work. You keep going to work until you're so sick you can't go anymore. If you got a little sniffles or sneezes, well, that's not enough to stay away from work. You just go to work when you're too sick to go to work. Other than that, You do it. It kills people, doesn't kill people. It's just fate. Let it go. Nothing we can do. Well, now this time we said, there is something we can do. We can slow down the rate of infection because this thing is particularly infectious. And how do you do that? You stop interacting so closely with people because it gets transferred from person to person. So stay home, wear a mask, do these other things. So where before there was, nothing could be done, just keep on living your life. This time it was, there is something that can be done, and let's do it. And we've probably saved, what are we going to end up by the time this is all over? Maybe hundreds, maybe millions of people's lives. Have good, productive learning going on in their life. And we're going to save a lot of that. Well, that's great. When people come here to grow up, a lot of that growing doesn't take place until somewhere after 40. It's on the upside of 40 where a lot of that growing takes place. You're just too busy with your life and yourself, when you're teens and 20s. And 30s, you start to make that curve, and get a little bigger picture and start having bigger interests than just yourself. And somewhere, on the other side of 40s is where people start to take stock of themselves and say, well, what is life about anyway? What's important and what's not? And at that point is where the possibility for growth starts to occur in those older years. And even when they get to be in their 70s and 80s, these questions of what's life all about and what does it mean? What have I done with my life and has it been good? What's important, what's not? Those things come up more to older people because they're not so full of everyday life running around satisfying, ego needs and needs of the moment. So to let all those people die at the part where they probably have some of their quicker growth, it's just not helpful to the growing up process either. Old people are an important part of our culture here. They come with wisdom, they come with experience, and they shouldn't be so casually just tossed out like they don't care. They're not all that important. Well, there's nothing we can do about it anyway. Well, we can, and we have. So hip, hip, hooray for us. We got out of that rut, and we're making a difference. And it's working. And so far, the pain that we've had to pay is less than the difference that we've made in the people we saved. So as long as the equation is like that, then we ought to keep doing it. When that equation goes the other way to the pain we create by staying separate is, greater than the pain we create by being together, then we need to shift and do something else. Cultures and societies will modify their rules to benefit the society. And that's what we're doing. So if it gets too painful, we'll start modifying those rules some. That's what societies do. And this society decided those older people were significant enough to suffer a bit for them. Well, good for us. Maybe we're growing up. You never know. Maybe we're thinking about other a little bit more, not so much about ourselves. It's a good sign. But then you've also stirred up a whole bunch of fear with the people who fear out of control. A lot of anger because they've been kicked out of their rut and things aren't going on the way they used to. There's a lot of bumps in that rut and a lot of uncertainty in that rut. Where's it going to go? Okay, I can get by for the next couple of weeks, but if I have to do this for another 6 months, I'm going to run out of funds and it's going to be terrible. Well, there's a lot of uncertainty about what's going to happen. And that uncertainty tends to create fear in people who aren't too grown up. And then that fear creates bad behavior, poor choices. Poor choices, bad behavior kind of go together. So that's kind of where we are in a nutshell. And it's up to us to either evolve or de-evolve according to our choices. And it'll be whatever we create. So we could create an ugly monster here because we've created more fear than we can deal with. Or maybe we'll create something really lovely with people who care more about other people and see the benefit in suffering a little if it helps other people. And as a culture, hopefully we'll grow up and evolve and not de-evolve, but it's up to every individual. What the culture does is going to be the kind of the vector sum of all the people in it. And we'll see. What do we make of this opportunity to grow up?
Let's do that.
Yeah, let's do that.
Do that. All right. Well, another great show. Should be interesting to see what the comments on this one are.
Yes, I expect we'll get some flames, some flamethrowers pointed at us at this one.
Probably.
Because fearful people have a hard time letting go of those fears. You know, that fear is an integral part of them, and they have a hard time letting go of control. So it's difficult. Most fearful people won't just listen to something and say, "Oh, I see. Oh, I just shouldn't be so afraid. Okay, not a problem." It doesn't work like that. Fear is very irrational, and irrational people don't usually get changed by rational discussion. If you're in an irrational mode of action, discussion to the contrary, that kind of outside of your beliefs, just doesn't faze you. Kind of goes right over your head or in one ear and out the other, as they say. So I don't know that it'll have a huge effect, but maybe those people that are in the middle, that are still thinking about it, maybe we'll give them a little something extra to think about.
A little nudge to the other side.
Yeah, a little nudge to the light, nudge toward the light.
All right. Well, you've been listening to News for the Heart. We've been getting to the heart of what matters with Tom Campbell, and I'm not sure what we're calling this, but we'll get there. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you, Laurie.
Have a question for Laurie and want to be on the next News from the Heart show? Drop us a line via instant feedback at bmajor.org. News from the Heart is brought to you by Intuitive Soul and is produced by Major Radio for Clear Channel's iHeartRadio and bmajor.org.